Afternoon, everybody. We're glad you could join us for the October Curriculum Leaders Update meeting. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mary Treece, Executive Director of Educational Services. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon, and we have a host of multiple Wayne Risa leaders and consultants that will be sharing information with you today. We are recording this because we did it last month and I sent it out to everybody and we got really positive feedback for that. So we thought we would continue to record that way. If there's any pieces you want to share with people or you want to listen to it as a podcast, that's entirely up to you. But here's what we're going to cover today. Of course, the Wayne Risa October Update Report. Mike Lathis is with us to give some legislative updates. Joe and Cindy are with us to talk about the fall data review that has been shared with superintendents. We have state assessment updates, instructional technology opportunities, special ed, and safe and healthy schools. So we have quite a robust agenda. The update report for October, I believe I sent that maybe yesterday, and we always archive it here. So you have access to these slides, and you can always access any of the update reports month after month right there. We encourage you to share this widely with your team, with other educators. It kind of covers the breadth of central office to classroom teachers to finance office. There's so much there for everybody who works within your organization. Please feel free to share. Next, Anna. This is just a quick reminder from me. We had our first event in October. We're really trying to focus in on adolescent age students. We've spent so much time focusing on early literacy, and we also know we need to continue to support students as they progress up the grades and into adolescence. Attendance is not looking good. You'll hear some of that in the fall data review today. And what are we doing to create compelling reasons for students to come to school, especially in their adolescent years? So we're really leaning heavily into the disciplinary literacy essentials from GELN. October 8th was really geared toward classroom practice. November 19th is the second part, and anybody can come. But this one's really for school principals, building, district leaders, instructional coaches, because we're going to be talking about shaping and reshaping school-wide systems that support effective instruction at the secondary level. We really encourage you to be here. The whole secondary Wayne Risa team will be here. We're working in conjunction with Oakland schools and the Disciplinary Literacy Task Force. We hope to see you there. I believe that link is right there in the slide deck, and Michelle's putting it in the chat. One more slide for me. This is really just a reminder in case you haven't done this yet. Section 35A5 additional time grant. This was released on in October, and it's due November 4th by 12 o'clock noon. This is money that you just have to apply for to get. Many of you have done this before. If you haven't, you really want to take a look. The per pupil allocation is $197 per first grader based on your 23-24 count. The application is in Nexus this year. That's a little bit different. The purpose of the funds is to provide additional support and resources for pre-K through 5th grade to boost literacy. You can use it to spend additional time before, during, and after school and for summer learning. Allowable use is anything from staffing costs, assessment costs, technology, reading materials, professional development. We are happy to partner with you. Heather Rotterman, our MTSS coordinator, or any of our literacy team is happy to help you think through a robust program or use of these funds. Linked in this slide, you will find the original memo that came out on October 3rd. And also we're getting updates from MDE. So that last link there is a list. It's a spreadsheet that has all of our districts, well, really the districts across MPSAs across the state. But if you scroll down and find Wayne Risa, it'll tell you what your student count was for 23-24 first graders. Multiply that by 197. That tells you what your allocation will be. And it also highlighted people who have already applied as of 10/18. So that I urge you to check that, see if your district has applied. If you haven't, you really want to be mindful and get that done before 11/4, before November 4th. We can send periodic updates to you between now and November 4th, just to ensure that everybody is applying for these funds. If there are districts or PSAs that do not apply for these funds, then that'll increase allocations for everybody, right? Because it'll go right back into the bucket and they'll recalculate the formula. But at minimum, you'll get $197 per first grader based on your 23-24 count. And we're going to send it to Mike for legislative updates.
Thanks, Mary. You can probably go to the next slide, but there's my contact information. If you guys ever have something that comes up, that you have a question that comes to mind after we are not on these calls. Quick little legislative updates for this month, as obviously the legislature is pretty much done for the month of October and for almost all of November, probably. They were in session for just about a couple days. I think the House was in session for one day and the Senate was in session for maybe 3 or 4 in September. And I think I shared that back in the beginning of September when we last spoke, but not much got done. There ended up being a supplemental, which was always something that we thought could happen, but was still a bit of a surprise. And really, this whole last week was the whole last week of legislative session, which is the week of the 20, I think it was the 23rd to 24th of September, was all surrounded messaging, campaign messaging for House Democrats, and you saw that I think 2 weeks before the end, before that week, House Republicans came out and kind of shamed them and said that kind of focused on the school safety and mental health cuts in Section 31AA, and also focused on literacy rates and dyslexia in a press conference that they held. So it wasn't really too much of a surprise to me that week they passed a supplemental as well as the dyslexia bills, which really I got to stop calling dyslexia bills because they're literacy bills that have been kind of masked as dyslexia. But the supplemental really only included $125 million in Section 31AA for school safety and mental health. It is going to be, that's still about a 52% cut for over current year. So districts are really only going to receive somewhere around the lines of about $100 per pupil for school safety and mental health, which is not where we want to be, not where we need to be, but it is something. And actually, that could go up a little bit because there was $25 million that was passed in the initial school aid budget, so it won't go up by much, but probably about $110 a kid is my guess. As I think I shared with you guys, this is more for the superintendents, but the MIPSers change and rate reduction lock statute bill was finally passed. It reduced the rate that districts pay on every staffing dollar by 5.75% moving forward, and also got rid of the 3% the 3% fee that the employees that are still enrolled in that system pay towards their retiree healthcare benefits. So that was a big deal that we got that done. Ultimately, puts more money leaves more money in districts' general funds, and that is a good thing. It's not the full 7% reduction that we wanted, but we're still looking at that as a pretty big win considering the headwinds that were going against us during the budget process and all the way through September. Excuse me. So as I mentioned, they passed the dyslexia package of bills. I found out about a week before they did that. We were up in Traverse City. Actually, I think it was the same time that I talked to all of you. I think that evening I found out that they had intended on passing the dyslexia bills. Before that, I was told that they were likely going to continue to work on them through October and into November and pass them out in lame duck. But again, like I mentioned, they kind of got shamed into pushing those bills faster. Unfortunately, there weren't many changes to the bill that were made, as you all had probably seen previously. I was able to get a couple changes made that were based. There were nothing substantial in the sense of something that would change our position on the bills, position of opposition on the bills, but did change some things as it relates to operationalizing this and when it goes into effect. Two of the changes we made: one, there was a number of different times within this bill where it talks about district boards of education or district school boards ensuring that the district did X, Y, or Z as it relates to sending out and or including parental notification in an IRIP or dealing with parents in an IEP, and so on and so forth. So we were able to get that language taken out. They agreed that I kind of walked them through like here's the role of school boards, and it is not to do this. Not to mention, school boards cannot have any specific information related to students and families. So that was at least taken out. And the second piece is we had tried. There's a requirement in there for districts to black out any student and teacher identifying information on every single IRIP and send them to the ISDs to be collated and then send them to the state. I had tried to just completely get rid of those. It seems like the department and I was just on a call yesterday. The department has no interest in these IRIPs, and I knew they were in there because of a certain external organization not linked to the state likes to do research and not always nice reports on school data. And I was at least able to get a line in there that said that the department is banned from sharing any IRIP information externally. Doesn't mean the department can't do anything with this information and with this data, but they can't share it externally. So that was tiny bit of a win. Again, that has nothing to do, is nothing substantial in terms of our concerns that we actually had with the actual bills. But it was clear that at that point that whether we liked it or not, these things were moving. I did ask for more changes. These were the only two that I got. And I don't think, and really nobody else got any changes included in this bill. So these bills go into effect in the 26-27 school year. So we have a little bit of time, although it's not a ton of time. I was just on the call yesterday with the department. And actually, I should stop there because did everyone see and Mary? I don't know if you've linked. So the MD, I think on Friday or Saturday, sent out a guidance memo or initial guidance memo on this package to districts. Did you guys have that linked in here at all?
Do you mean
It is not currently linked, but we can add it.
we'll add it?
Okay. So the department put that out and said, here's all the things, the department's responsible for these things. And it says, here's what districts can do to kind of start the process. I flagged for the department that, sending that out is a little ridiculous in the sense that they're telling districts to start planning for things that a lot of it are going to be based on how the department moves forward in a lot of these aspects, right? So part of it was, I think in there it said it encourages districts to talk to their current assessment providers about all the things in here, right? Well, the department is responsible for an RFP that is going to basically name the certain number of assessment providers, right? So it's kind of pushing the buck onto districts saying, here, you guys do this while we're off doing, who knows what. So I told them every month I'm going to be asking them for a timeline on all the different things that are in this bill that is required of the department. And I said that, this was the department's literacy bill. The department has fixed literacy in their eyes. So it needs to not it needs to start to get to work and not expect districts to kind of say, oh, 4, 5, 6 months out, here's all the information you finally need, go operationalize this. So I was told, well, Mike, this is a very dense bill, and we're going to do our best. And I said, well, then we're going to have a problem, and I'm going to send folks to you guys every single week asking you on timeline and when things are going to be done. So just FYI, just to share with you guys on that, some of the conversations we're having surrounding the dyslexia and moving this forward. As a heads up, there was going to be an executive order that was focused on education coming from the governor. We had heard about that towards the beginning of September. I might have shared that at the last time I spoke with you guys. I can't recall. I have, I had a number of different conversations with legislators, a number of different conversations with the governor's office, shared with the governor's team that I didn't think that this was such a good idea for a number of different reasons. And did find out a couple weeks ago, towards the end of September, that they were no longer going to move forward with an executive order. That the little that we did know that was going to be in it was going to be focused on student outcome measures. I don't know what that means outside of those words. But my guess is that there's probably some legal issues setting that in an executive order, which is why they didn't do it. Now, my concern is while there's not going to be an executive order on education, my concern is in all of these student outcome measures, talking about student outcome measures, and let's add on the spending accountability measures, come from this organization called Launch Michigan, which I hope many of you have heard of. We are opposed to pretty much everything that they are pushing for. But my concern is that the governor might try and weave some of this stuff into her executive budget recommendations that we see next February. So just sharing information with you guys on that. One of these last pieces, the 3% reimbursement, was mostly for superintendents, but I'll share with you guys as well. This, as I mentioned, as part of the MIPSers bill, there was an end to the 3% payment of current employees that are enrolled in the MIPSers OPEB system that will receive health care. What they did in the budget is for this year, and those employees are still paying that 3% from now until October 1st of next year. There was 189 million, if my memory serves, in the budget for districts to reimburse those employees this year that paid into that fund. There is what MDE is calling a technical problem, a language problem with that funding, and is asking for a fix from the legislature that cannot take place until towards the end of this year. So that 3% reimbursement likely won't begin going out to employees until sometime after the new year. Just as a FYI for you guys on that. And then the final piece is really what we're going to start to hear what we're already hearing, and we're going to start to hear more about in lame duck, is one of the primary pieces of policy that is going to be moving or will be talked about is healthcare costs for employees. I've heard everything from a repeal of PA 152 to a proposal to require districts to pay 7% on top of the 80/20 to we really don't know how to fix this. And that's kind of where we're at this point. I think that I've been telling legislators there's two problems here. One is a global problem of healthcare in this country that I don't know if they can fix. We certainly can't fix. And two is resources. I've shared with them that our superintendents, our districts would pay for 100% of all benefits if they had the resources to do so. So it's a global problem, it's a resource problem, but outside of that, we really don't have a solution. Although premiums are going to be skyrocketing after the first of the year. I think for a family of four, you're going to be you're going to see an additional 2,500 to 3,000 a month, and that's if it's a 10-11% increase, which is another $250 for employees in their pay in their monthly paychecks. So that's going to be a big thing moving forward. We'll have to see. A lot of this can change too with how the election comes out. So I'll have more to say at the November meeting, I'm sure. If the House Democrats maintain their majority, I'm sure we'll probably see a calmer lame duck. If they lose their majority, I'm told that there's about $350 million that is in the coffers, and they would likely spend every single penny of it. And they would surely likely get through a lot of other union education related policies that have been kicking around in the air but haven't really been priorities. One of them has to do with paid leave as well. So more to come on that as we get into November, but I will stop there. Happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Okay, next we have Cindy Tereshevitz and Dr. Joe Musial taking us through our Wayne County Fall Data Review. This has been shared with superintendents and leaders across the county, and we also would like you to be aware of the data.
Okay, so we are going to share some high-level state data for Wayne County and the state. Some data points we're going to talk about today. Accountability. We're going to talk about our 2024 state testing. Read by grade 3 guidelines, graduation rate, enrollment, and then attendance. So the majority of the data that we'll discuss today largely contributes to Michigan's accountability index system that you see here with our components. The index system generates your overall score up to 100. It's based on your multiple components, your proficiency, growth, graduation rate, multilingual learner progress, assessment participation. That's for your general assessments and your WIDA assessment. And then in your school quality student success, you do have subcomponents. So you have your attendance, advanced coursework, post-secondary enrollment, and then you have your access to arts, PE, library, and media. So you have your subcomponents. Scores are calculated based on how effectively a school meets the state targets that are set up in each of those components. Those state targets were recalculated this last index release last year, and those state targets are linked there. Each component is then weighted, and there's a greater emphasis placed on your proficiency and growth. As you can see, proficiency and growth make up over 60% of the points in the index, or of the weight in the index. Next. So schools can be labeled comprehensive support improvement, or CSI, or as a definition of low performing, and become partnership district for either having an overall index score in the bottom 5% of the state, and that number changes based on how schools perform and the ranking of the schools and the distribution, or by having a 4-year graduation rate under 67%. The frequency of identification is every 3 years. Our last identification year was in 2021-22 in the fall, every November. In that year of the identification, we had 94 CSI schools in Wayne County that made up 36% of the state. Out of those 94 CSI schools, some worked with OES, the others worked with partnership district. So we had 22 that were identified as partnership districts that made up 40% of the state. Since 2022, 3 have closed, 1 has been removed. We are at currently 18 partnership districts. The next identification year is 24-25. So this release in November, December, they're saying late November, December, will not be an identification year. So next year is an identification year. Next slide. So we're going to move into our state data, MSTEP, PSAT, and SAT. Our Wayne County performance trends. Wayne County continues to experience positive progress in 2024. We saw this across the trends with the state. Out of the 20 grade levels tested, 14 of them, which was 70%, saw improvement from 2023. 1 grade level remained consistent, that's 5%. Throughout many of the grade levels, Wayne County is narrowing the gap to the state. And even though we are seeing some improvement, Wayne County is still dedicated to ongoing improvement within ELA and math. On average, across all grade levels, only 25% of the students are proficient in math, while 35.9% have reached proficiency in ELA. And so the data highlights significant disparities in proficiency rates among student groups that you will see. So these disparities point to opportunity gaps and the need for focused improvement efforts and equitable access to resources to help these groups succeed. And even though today we look at high-level data, we don't have access to benchmark data, we encourage districts to analyze their data using a balanced assessment system approach to dig into your benchmark data and your formative data to look at your needs beyond just the state level data. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to start with ELA. We'll move through the content areas. As you can see here, if we focus on the green, the left side is the Wayne County performance for 23-24, and the right side is the state. We focus on the green improvement. You can see we had a lot of improvement throughout the grade levels. You can look at 8th grade. We had 5.2% growth from 2023. And in 3rd grade, we actually had slight increase where the state declined. Next. And this is our 3-year trend just in Wayne County across the different grade levels. So 3rd through 11th grade, we're looking for upward trends. So you can see growth throughout many of the grade levels, especially in our 8th grade. 8th grade ELA is the one grade level that has reached post-pandemic proficiency in ELA. That's the one grade for ELA. Next slide. And here, if we look at our 3-year trends for Wayne County versus the state, you can see that we are narrowing the gap. If you look at our aggregate in grades 3 through 7, state versus Wayne County, we are narrowing that gap to performance with the state. Thank you. Next slide. We move into math, a lot of green positive trends. So in 3 through 7th grade, we saw improvement in all of those grade levels. Some of those grade levels had more growth than the state. Still working on improvement in 8th and 11th grade. Next slide. And our 3-year trends in Wayne County for math, very positive movement, 3 through 7th grade. We took dips in math for 8th and 11th grade this year. And that was also seen if we go to the next slide. That was also seen across the state in 8th and 11th grade. And even though we did decrease in 8th grade math, we still closed the gap in the state in 8th grade. And we're closing the gap in our aggregate 3 through 7. Next slide. Social studies, all improvements from 23 to 24. Same as we follow the state trends. Next slide. 3-year trends, all in the upward direction, improving in social studies. 5th and 8th grade social studies are also at pre-pandemic proficiency. So they've reached the scores that we saw back in 2019 before COVID. And then we're looking at our Wayne County 3-year trends to state. That's good. And then our science. So we can see growth in our 5th and 8th grade. We're still working at 11th grade. We saw a decrease, but positive movement in 5th and 8th grade. Next slide. And then our trends for Wayne County for the last 3 years, positive growth. We took a little dip in the high school. And if we look at that compared to the state, for our 3-year trends compared to the state, we see that the state took that same dip in 11th grade. So we're right on point with the same trends across the state within our content areas. Next slide. Okay, if we shift our focus over to looking at our student groups, we do have to do some focused work here. We see that 96.7% of students with disabilities were not proficient on PSAT math. That's grade 8 in Wayne County. 90.8% of economically disadvantaged students were not proficient on SAT math, grade 11 in Wayne County. We observed a proficiency gap between our economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged students in M-STEP ELA, the aggregate for grades 3 through 7 in Wayne County. And the percent of Black and African American students that were not proficient on M-STEP math in grades 3 through 7 in Wayne County is 89.1. So some intentional focused work we need to look at with our marginalized groups. Next slide. These next couple slides, it just shows you a deeper dive into the not proficient and proficient within the different assessments. So this is ELA and math M-STEP. I'm not going to go into all of them, but you can see the dark blue is not proficient, and your student groups are on the left, and then the light blue is proficient. So that's ELA and math M-STEP aggregate. The next slide. PSAT 8, ELA and math. Again, not proficient and proficient by student groups. Next slide. And your SAT, ELA, and math by student groups. So the one thing I do want to point out within all of these graphs and these slides, these last student group slides, the top 4 student groups that were not proficient are your economically disadvantaged, Black African American, students with disabilities, and multilingual learners. So we see that pattern and trend as being the top student group. So we have to take time to actually reflect and ask, what are we doing to close those opportunity gaps? And how might we align services and resources to help students reach their potential? If we look at overall, so we do have work to do, but we also have to celebrate some of the improvements that we're making because we are making positive movements. If we look at overall improvement from 23 to 24, with all of our districts, LEAs and PSAs, the gray here is our ELA. So you can see about 50% made improvement overall in Wayne County. In ELA grades 3 through 7, about 2/3, 66.4 in PSAT 8 ELA, and about 40% in SAT ELA. If we look at our math, which is the light blue, about 2/3, 64.7 in math grades 3 through 7, 33% in math grade 8, and 23.9 in high school grade 11. So more work to do in that secondary mathematics level. Next slide. And then these next slides highlight some of the successes we had with our districts. We look at top 5 districts with the most improvement in M-STEP ELA and M-STEP math aggregate grades 3 through 7. We have our top 5 LEA districts and our top 5 PSA districts with the most improvement. The yellow highlights that it's a partnership district. So they are really working on with those goals. So take a moment to celebrate those successes. Our next is our top 5 districts with the most improvement in PSAT 8 ELA and PSAT math. And then our next slide is top 5 districts with the most improvement in SAT ELA and SAT math. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Good afternoon. This is the Read by Grade 3. So the Read by Grade 3 guidelines, newly adjusted language from the Read by Grade 3 law includes removing the retention component, preserves components requiring the communication of student progress with their families, and requires supports for students with a reading deficiency. Grade 3 students who score 1271 or below on the ELA M-STEP are identified as having a reading deficiency. And CEPI sent notifications to the parents of all 3rd grade students identified with a reading deficiency based on the spring 2024 ELA M-STEP results. And again, there's a nice 2x2 table we have. So 1271 or lower. The response is additional reading supports are required, and parents will receive letters informing them that their child has a reading deficiency. For a 1272 or higher, which is above the cut, meets the grade 3 reading requirement, but additional needs for supports can be determined at the local level. So it's not state mandated, but it's at the local level. Next slide. Here is the Read by Grade 3 guidelines for the percent needing support for the 1271 or below. We can see in 2023, we had 37.9% in Wayne County that needed additional support, and in 2024, 37.4%, so a small decrease. Here are the Read by 3 grade lines. The percent needing support So if you look in the red, it identifies those subgroups that require additional support. And as Cindy had mentioned previous, these are the same subgroups we consistently see with our achievement data. So homeless, 65.2%, almost 2/3, foster care, students with disabilities, and Black or African American children, as well as ED, economically disadvantaged, which is our proxy for poverty, 45.6% needing additional support. And you can see that's pretty much correlated also too with socioeconomic status, where the not economically disadvantaged has the lowest percentage needing support. Next slide. So the Read by Grade 3 law requires supports for students identified with a reading deficiency. So these support services include an IRIP, the Individual Reading Improvement Plan, daily targeted small groups or one-on-one reading intervention, ongoing progress monitoring toward the student's target, support from a reading specialist, before and after school or extra reading programs from a teacher or tutor with specialized training, as well as at a read at home plan and support for families to be provided to address those deficiencies. Next slide. So now we're going on to graduation, enrollment, and attendance. So the graduation data is collected in December for the previous year and subsequently updated and reported on our My School Data Portal in February. So as a result, the data is always 1 year behind. So this data that we're presenting reflects 2023. In schools with a graduation rate less than 67%, which is 2/3, can be labeled as CSI on the Accountability Index System. And here are your graduation rate state targets set by MDE, 4-year being 93%, 5-year 95.75%, and the 6-year cohort at 96.34% respectively. Here are, we included, Cindy and I included Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County, and state. Here are the 4-year graduation trends, and you can see that our trend is showing a nice linear path upwards, still below others though. Next slide. Here is the 4-year graduation rate by student subgroups. So again, the leading group is Asian, female. The dark red is all students. But as you can see, as you go from left to right, and we see shift towards the right, again, those same groups that keep showing up in terms of graduation rate. So foster care, just barely 51% have a 4-year graduation rate. Homeless, 62%. Next slide. Here is the 5-year graduation trend. We're showing a decline in 2023, and Cindy and I are of the opinion that we believe that this is due to an improvement in the 4-year graduation rate. So we're seeing less children graduating with a 5-year. Next slide. And same thing with 6-year graduation. So for Wayne County, just under 75% too. But again, we believe that this is related to the improved 4-year graduation rate. Next slide. Here are our the Wayne County enrollment trends. So you can see in right before the pandemic, 2019-20, we had 271,000 students. So from the pre-pandemic of 2019-20 to today, we have seen a reduction by 4.24% in Wayne County. This is slightly below the state. So our current enrollment as of 2023-24 is 259,642 students. There are many factors associated with this declining enrollment, including homeschooling, private school enrollment, so shifting from public to private, delayed enrollment in early grades, economic factors, as well as demographic changes such as moving in and out of state. Next slide. Here is the Wayne County enrollment by student groups too. So we can see that the largest enrollment group is economically disadvantaged, just below 70%. Next slide. Here is the percent change enrollment by student group from 2019 and 20. So we are seeing 28%, two or more races, multilinguals 12%. So these are all above the x-axis are those that show a percent improve or increase in enrollment. Next slide. Here is just a trend of chronically absent. Again, chronically absent is operationally defined as a student missing 10% or more of instructional time, which is about 18 days. So a child is missing about 18 days of instructional time. We can see the dip in 2020-21. We believe also too that had to do with remote and the way attendance was being captured. So the current chronic absentee rate for Wayne County is 41.5% of our students in Wayne County are chronically absent. Next slide. Again, here is chronically absent Wayne County compared to state, and you can see that it's following the same shape, but we have a higher rate than the state. So you can see 41.5 compared to 29.5 in 2023-24. Next slide. And here is the Wayne County percent chronically absent by grade. And we wanted you to just be aware of this data. So we can see in kindergarten, just about approximately 48% of kindergartners are chronically absent. In grade 1, 43.2%. And then as we move towards the 9th grade, 43.8% and 45% by the 12th grade. As Mary and Carol and Paul had also mentioned too, is that we also have many supports at Wayne Risa that we are addressing chronic absenteeism. And then here is the Wayne County chronically absent by student group. So again, we see that just below 74% of chronically absent are homeless student or home unsecured, Black African American, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities. Again, these are the same trends that you keep seeing if you go at our previous achievement. And if you look at the lowest group, it's those students who are not economically disadvantaged. So again, to an association between chronic absenteeism and socioeconomic status. We also know that if a child's absent, they're less likely to be proficient on grade 3 reading also too. And if you're not proficient on grade 3 reading, we believe also that you're more likely to not graduate also. Next slide. So the key takeaways, there are significant gaps in proficiency attendance in the graduation rates across socioeconomics, racial, and ethnic groups that are driven by systemic challenges that disproportionately affect marginalized communities. Collecting a range of data from broad trends to more detailed metrics helps create a fuller picture of student outcomes, enabling for more focused and effective improvement strategies. And by examining data at various levels, we as leaders can better address these inequities, uncover root causes, take action. It's also essential to continue the equity work at Wayne Risa, aligning resources, services, and professional learning with the specific needs revealed by this data, so being data-driven. And this data also highlights the ongoing impact of COVID-19 on students with challenges that extend beyond academics and with a renewed focus on social emotional learning. And to address these obstacles, educators must take a holistic approach, prioritizing both academic recovery and emotional support. And before I hand off to Mary, are there any questions that you might have for Cindy and I?
There are no questions in the chat.
Okay, so you have this PowerPoint, and we're always available to answer specific questions after this meeting as well. So Mary, I'd like to hand it off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Cindy, not only for organizing the data for us, but also analyzing some of it. Very helpful. Here's some Wayne Risa initiatives that we have in place to support positive outcomes moving forward, and some of it is continued. I'm not going to read them to you. You're familiar with a lot of these, but if there are things on here that you're not familiar with and you're interested in knowing more, please reach out. And then we also pursue multiple funding sources to support districts with in-school acceleration, tutoring programs, out-of-school time programs, summer learning, professional learning, high-quality curriculum and resources, promoting effective instructional assessment practices. These are some of the funding sources that we pursue and lean into to provide the support at Wayne Risa. And then this slide can take you to a link for the fall data book, which is a collection of all of the data that Joe and Cindy have compiled into an accessible format.
Then back to me for my regular updates. Thank you. Next slide. These are just our state testing resources and reminders. I have created a s'more, the very top link. It's preparing for state assessments and checklist. It just goes month by month. What you need to be doing to get ready for the 2025 state testing, which I know is all the way in April. But there are tasks you should start doing now, which I will talk about in the next couple slides. But that first link is a s'more that you can go through month by month. The next hyperlink there is MDE important dates, I'm sorry. They have started to release the dates. So when pre-ID will open, the schedules for training, dates that are coming out, all the different dates that you need for testing. Those dates are getting released, so they're all linked there. If you're doing an online waiver request and you plan on testing paper pencil, that is now open through 11/15. You have to go into OEAA and submit that online waiver request. And then if you remember last year, it was the first year, they sent an interactive checklist for College Board for digital SAT. They are doing that again this year. They said it's going to be out sooner this year, so fingers crossed. That is supposed to be coming to test coordinators on 11/18. So make sure you're checking your emails, make sure everybody is updated in the EEM, so everybody is getting that interactive checklist. It's supposed to give you up-to-date items of what needs to be done to get ready for digital SAT, the compliance side. College Board request accommodations, date change. So at one point, they said that all accommodations could be requested in SSD. They have changed that. Your state allowed accommodations cannot be requested. They're pushing that date back until January 9th. So state allowed accommodations will not open until January 9th. You have until February 18th. You can still go in there now until February 18th for College Board approved accommodations and for your English learner time and a half and your time and a half and supports. So those are open currently. Just your state allowed, that is the date change that's moved back to January. Wayne Risa is hosting a webinar. It's instructional shifts and some compliance pieces that I'll be doing. But there's our ELA team and our math team will be there. It's on October 28th at Wayne Risa in the morning. I have the link there to register, but we'll talk about some compliance pieces, and then the ELA team will talk about instructional shifts needed to get ready for digital SAT, and the math team will talk about instructional shifts. So it's beyond just compliance. It's really digging down into how to align your curriculum to prepare for the digital SAT beyond test prep, but really alignment with your curriculum. And then College Board has their training schedule out. So they have a district test coordinator orientation on November 7th. You can register there, and a school test coordinator part 1 in December 5th. The top College Board training schedule is hyperlinked with all of the training dates they have coming soon. Next slide. Manage participation for work keys. This has to be done every year annually, even if you tested last year. So do not skip this step. This is done by the school level. It is not done by the district level. So each school's work keys test coordinator must go into the Pearson Access Next account, which is hyperlinked there. The window is November 4th to December 6th. You have to go in and let them know that you will be testing. And then you have to let them know which week you are going to test. So you have 2 options this year. You can pick test window 1, which will select standard test day, March 27th. And then you can see the accommodation window, March 27th to April 9th. Or you will pick test window 2, your standard test day, April 10th. And then your accommodation window, April 10th to the 23rd. So you're going to tell them, yes, you're testing, and then pick your test window. This has to be done every year. So make sure you're going to do that once it opens on November 4th. And then your intent to participate for College Board. This opens October 28th. It closes November 20th. This is a little bit different. Schools are automatically established every year as long as they tested last year at least 5 students and over the past 2 years. As long as they have the actual grades in the EEM. They have 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade established in the EEM as actual grades. They've tested over the last 2 years, and all their school contacts are up to date. They will get automatically reestablished every year. If a school falls under their criteria where they are not automatically reestablished, then their test coordinator will receive an email asking them about their intent to participate, and they have to respond to that email. So make sure if you don't fall under that criteria, you look for that email coming October 28th. Once this College Board establishment is done and the managed participation for work keys is done, everything gets updated in OEAA. So make sure you go into OEAA, you go to the assessment registration tab, then go to test center participation. It's going to show you all the tests, work keys, SAT, PSAT, and they should all show yes. Make sure they all say yes. If anything says no, you can contact me and I'll help you get a hold of someone to make sure you get established for participation. But it will happen within 2 weeks of these managing participation, so give it 2 weeks. If you don't see it by December 13th, please make sure you're emailing me. Accountability update, Michigan School Index reports are expected, as I said, end of November, early December. It will reflect 23-24 school year results. It will be on my school data portal. There is a 1-week preview window for authorized users. You need an accountability role to access accountability download files. It can be found under the K-12 grade tab, then select accountability, then school index. I have a couple of resources here, how to access and preview the index, accountability best practices, and then how to create an account on my school data portal. If you need help with a login, please email me. And then sending scores back program, this ties into accountability. Eligible schools and classroom programs that provide alternative education, early middle college, gifted, talented, special education services to neighboring or consortium districts that house students that are not in their district. The Sending Scores Back program allows non-resident student assessment results and non-resident graduation statuses to be sent back in school accountability reporting to the school's home district of residency. So all of their accountability data, their graduation data, as long as the school signs up to be a C, gets sent back to the school student's home district. Okay. If you participated in the Sending Scores Back program in a prior year, you need to reapply to reestablish your status for the 24-25 school year for those accountability results for next year. For the fall. So the application is open. It's due January 13th. There's a link there for the application and instruction. There's a program overview. And then if you want more information, the CMDE website is linked there.
Hi, my name is Kate Pearson. I'm the new Essential Elements consultant here at Wayne Risa. At our last meeting, we had talked about the Essential Elements Curriculum Companion Guide, and it is now live and has been shared with districts, with the special ed directors in each district. And again, this guide really focuses on giving districts and teachers the ability to explore different curriculum options for our students with special needs, mild, moderate, and severe, and supplemental curriculum options that are aligned with Common Core and aligned with the essential elements. So this is live and we have the link to share with you. It's also being added to our Wayne Risa website, which recently just got a beautiful facelift. So we're really excited for this resource and to have it be shared and just be a guide to provide special education with more curriculum options.
Few updates for just different opportunities that are becoming available for instructional technology and making. So the first one is our annual Maker STEM Summit is being held this year on February 13th. It will be at the Henry Ford again this year, and we just encourage you to save the date. Feel free to share this with your teachers. It's a great day of learning, especially for those educators who are STEM minded, who have those spaces in their classroom. Just a great day of learning and exploring. Next. We also have an opportunity right along with STEM, we have computational thinking and really engaging students and educators in a different way. So we have our project learning in a box opportunity. So this is completely virtual opportunity where teachers receive a box in the mail with everything they need to implement a really fun computational thinking activity with students. And then they also engage in some professional learning via Zoom virtual options so that they can really extend their learning. We're really trying to get to that impact level with students. And this is one of the best ways that I've seen to make that happen. So if you know someone who might be interested in this, it starts January 21st, and those boxes will be going out soon. Next. Next, we also have an opportunity for a virtual book study. The book is included in this, where if you're interested in dipping your toe in a little bit more with AI and kind of what that means, we're looking at the book Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with AI by Ethan Mollick. This is a great text and one that if you're interested in exploring, this is a great thing to sign up for. Everything's via Zoom, and we'd love to have you participate in that. And that is, and thanks in large part to RIMC for sponsoring that. Next. We mentioned this last week as well, but our regionalized professional learning on November 5th is taking place across the county. And if you're still looking for some pieces for some of your elective teachers or teachers who might be interested in attending off-site professional learning, we have a full catalog of opportunities for them that we'd like to invite them to. And then if you go to the next slide, one of those opportunities is specifically for secondary teachers and goes back to that idea of AI. We know this is coming up a lot in our secondary spaces as teachers grapple with what does it mean for students to have access to artificial intelligence in, let's say, a high school literacy course. So just some ways to think about that and respond to this AI revolution. We're so fortunate to have Dr. John Spencer with us on that day. He is nationally known. He's an author and brilliant in this space, and I'm certainly looking forward to learning with him. So if you're interested in that, we do have a live stream option available now as well. So the flyer is linked there as well as registration information. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zainab Haydous. I'm a multilingual consultant from Wayne Risa, and I wanted to give you a little update from the multilingual department at Wayne Risa. Next, please. So for the Section 41 report for last year, 23-24, this report is usually due October 15th. However, this year there has been a glitch in the Nexus system, and MDE is currently working on fixing a lot of the errors that have been that people have been encountering. So just so you know, if you are trying to complete that report and you're not able to, MDE is aware of this and they are working to get it fixed. Now, the new due date will come out once MDE lets us all know that everything has been fixed, and it would be 10 days after all the glitch is fixed. This will also delay the allocation submissions for 24-25 school year, which originally are set for November 1st. So if you're not able to see your allocations for next year by November 1st, this is the reason why. So just keep an eye out. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to MDE. And I also wanted to highlight that we have our program evaluation resource Padlet with resources around Section 41, as well as program evaluation. I will put that in the chat for all of you. Next, please. So as Michelle mentioned, the regionalized PD that is taking place on November 5th, I wanted to highlight a couple of offerings that our department will be offering. First, in the morning of November 5th, we have partnered with specialists from Wayne State University who will be offering 2 different sessions, specifically on art therapy and movement therapy trainings that are trauma-informed trainings. This is open to obviously all of the educators, but if you are not sure what to do with your special teachers and they are available that morning, they are more than welcome to log in. We have 2 sessions, one from 8 to 9:30, which is the art therapy, and then 9:30 to 11, which is the movement therapy. I will put the link for that in the chat. You must sign up through the MDE link. And then in the afternoon, our department is also hosting 2 in-person trainings in the Wayne County Community College Downriver campus from 12:30 to 3:30. One will be focused on unpacking the WIDA ELD standards. And then another session is also focused on the AI and harnessing AI in diverse classrooms. I will also put all of those links in the chat. And finally, just wanted to make sure that you are part of the listserv for our multilingual team. If you are not receiving our updates and important information from the ML department, and you would like to be added, please contact our administrative assistant, Kelly. And we also offer a lot of virtual PD for free using the code WCML 2025. So feel free to check out our website and register or tell educators to register for any of our offerings. Thank you.
Zainab, it looks like the Padlet to the resources didn't open. Do you happen
Okay,
to have
I
that you
will-
could drop in for us?
Yep, I'll put it right in. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Terry Shawinski with a quick update for Safe and Healthy Schools. On the next slide, you'll see another reminder about our 31N6 request for funding. That is funding to provide support to students with mild to moderate mental health needs. That application is open and will remain open until November 5th. We already had a couple of Q&A sessions and just today we scheduled a third and final Q&A session, which you will see the date November 7th from 1 to 2 with a Zoom link here. Of course, if there are questions that come up before that or after that, certainly you can reach out regarding this funding. As a quick reminder, this funding does require funded staff to participate in Medicaid billing and reimbursement and requires a 20% hard match. On the next slide, you will see information about the new cohort of Trails Tier 2 opening up. So Trails Tier 2 focuses on CBT and mindfulness, and it trains school-based mental health providers to lead 10 session skills groups with students in grades 3 through 12. The cohort that this is announcing will start their work in the spring of 2025. There are 4 different opportunities to learn more about what this would look like if you choose to have your school-based mental health providers engage in this work. You can register for any one of those 4 30-minute optional sessions to get more information. I've also linked the form. If you know that your school would like to participate in Trails Tier 2, you can go ahead and complete the form by December 13th, and that will get you on the list for the spring cohort. We also are reminding you that we are in our 3rd year of our partnership with Trails, where all schools can access Tier 1 programming, which really focuses on social emotional skill building. Tier 2, which is the CBT and mindfulness, but also Tier 3, which focuses on crisis and suicide prevention. So the links that are on the bottom, the general info letter gives you information about the other tiers of Trails programming, and the interest form, the general interest form, can be completed at any point to start your school's journey on Trails implementation. And on the next slide, just a quick reminder that we are asking administrators to complete this quick survey, which gives our Safe and Healthy Schools team information about the folks in your district that lead health and physical education, the people that are the leads for social work, school nursing, and school safety. We have networking meetings for each of those groups, and we want to make sure that all people, all disciplines have an opportunity to be added to a list during those networking meetings. And that is it for me today.
Thank you, Terry. And that takes us to the end of our Curriculum Leaders Update meeting. I'd like to thank you for your time and your participation. And I'd also like to thank the Wayne Risa team for organizing the information. Once again, you have access to the slides and all of the links. We are here to support you. You have contact information for everybody who presented today. We're happy for you to reach out if you'd like any further information or if we can answer any questions.